Now, Occupy Wall Street is venting their anger at the corporate elite that they say is steering our economy into a depression. They say corporations have infiltrated our politics, resulting in a nation that is not so democratic anymore. Beyond the economy, what other ways can corporations be running the lives of the masses? Some say their power is so vast that they dictate not just the economy, but the types of medicines we take, even the food that we eat. Mike Adams, also known as the Health Ranger, talks to us about the surprising ways corporations influence everyday lives of average people.
Hello, great to be joining you today.
Hi there. Hi. You say corporate power is so strong that they have a say in the types of foods we consume. Why do you say that?
Well, you know, the corporate influence on the USDA has been so enormous that the USDA has granted approval for what are essentially experimental foods or crops known as genetically modified organisms or genetically engineered crops. They've never been proven safe, and some evidence links them to, for example, organ disruption in animals. And yet the American people are being treated as guinea pigs by consuming these GMOs unknowingly because they aren't required to be labeled, but both the USDA and the FDA go along with it. So we see corporate influence throughout the US government and especially throughout the regulators who are approving products that really have a dubious safety record.
And how is the corporate agenda affecting the health of the general public?
Well, the big medical industry, of course, is based on earning profits from sickness and disease. So there's really no financial incentive for the pharmaceutical industry or even the vaccine industry, for that matter, to really show people how to prevent disease, to take responsibility for their health, to stay healthy, to make good food choices, and so on. There's just not an incentive there. And it doesn't have to be a conspiracy to keep people sick. It just has to be realizing that the for-profit medical industry, which works very closely with government, has no financial incentive whatsoever to keep people healthy.
So you're saying that there's a financial incentive to keep people sick?
There is indeed, yes. The cancer industry generates billions of dollars a year off of people who have cancer. Now, I'm not saying that they're trying to keep people sick with cancer, but they sure aren't looking very hard for the cures that really exist out there, nor the nutrients that we know help prevent cancer, such as vitamin D, which is only pennies a day, and at least one study shows that it can help prevent 4 out of 5 types of all cancers. That's just one nutrient that could really revolutionize healthcare in America, and yet the cancer industry is not talking about it, the NIH isn't really talking about it, the president isn't talking about it. We need to be talking about how do we prevent sickness and disease and keep our population out of the hospitals and off the drugs instead of becoming lifetime patients and lifetime paying customers who are all going bankrupt because they stay sick.
Well, this sounds kind of scary. Why aren't we talking about it? Why is the best interest not for public health?
Well, I think it's the same reason we're not talking about, let's say, an honest money supply. Why are the bankers in charge of the economy? Why is the Federal Reserve printing fiat currency and not turning over control of the money supply to the people? It's really all about consolidating power into the hands of the few who work in conjunction with government, often through a corruption kind of avenue, rather than allowing the power to go back to the people. And this is why we're seeing Occupy Wall Street. This is why people are taking to the streets, because they're fed up with being dictated to, with having their wealth and their health stolen away. People want their power back, and they have every right to demand it. So I support all the public protests that we're seeing today in America.
And that was the next question I was going to ask you. We're seeing the Occupy Wall Street protests gaining momentum. Do you see this as a hope for some real change in the system, a system that you say is designed to benefit the corporations?
Yeah, clearly the system that we have today, the status quo, is designed to benefit the few at the cost of the many. And I do have hope, because for a long time I wondered, would people get off their couches and get out into the streets and make their voices heard and demand their power back and demand control over their money supply and control over their own health destiny? And we're starting to see some early signs of success today Occupy Wall Street, whether or not people agree with the particular messages being said there. I agree with the principle of people getting out, making their voices heard, practicing their First Amendment rights, and letting their voices be heard on Wall Street and in Washington and all around the country. So
Now,
I'm in support of it.
sorry, I don't mean to jump in there, but I want to play a soundbite for you from Ron Paul, where he is referring to this uprising.
The Fed was involved with probably about $15 trillion worth of transactions, and a third of it was there to serve foreign banks. And when the American people hear this, no wonder they're up on Wall Street raising Cain, because they know that the system is biased against the average person.
So, Mike, what do you think? Is the system biased against the average person?
Absolutely, and Ron Paul is exactly on point with that quote, as he has been consistently year after year. The global banking cartels, you might call them, really do operate for their own selfish benefit at the expense of the American people. And one of the things that Ron Paul has called for, which we have supported at Natural News, is to audit the Fed. Let's have some transparency in what's happening with the money supply. That's also why we happen to support Ron Paul as a presidential candidate. He's the one person up there who wants to tell the truth and have some real transparency so that the American people can see what's happening to their future.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us. That was Mike Adams, the health ranger.